All right. Well, welcome. This is the pre-proposal conference for the acquisition partner request for qualifications. For attendance purposes, please put your name, title of the title, as well as the company that you're representing, and email address in the chat feature. The PowerPoint will be posted on the site, Zengen. It'll also be posted on the city site as well. We ask everyone to please mute themselves. And if you have any questions, please submit them in the chat function. I will be reading through the slides, and then at the end, I will have, there will be a session where you guys can ask as many questions as you want, and we will answer those. And so all requests for information, clarification, any questions must be emailed to hostprocurements@denvergov.org throughout this process. Questions should be received in accordance with the schedule of events that's posted on the RFP itself. Deadline to submit any additional questions is next Friday, April 7th by 5 p.m. And responses to those questions will be posted by Tuesday, April 11th by 5 p.m. Questions and responses throughout this event will be published as an addendum on Zengen. I would like to take a moment to just introduce some of our participants. And I apologize, I am missing a couple of names on there. But first, if we can start with Renee Gallegos.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Renee Gallegos, Deputy Director of Housing Opportunity within the Department of Housing Stability.
Thank you. Lana?
Hi, my name is Lana Dalton. I'm the Director of Unsheltered Homeless Response for HOST.
All right. Midori?
Hi, my name is Midori Higa. I'm the Director of Homelessness Resolution Programs at HOST.
Adam?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Adam Lyons, Lead Housing Development Officer for HOST.
And Jillian?
Good morning, Jillian Lubinow. I work with the real estate team for the city as asset manager.
All right. Pardon me. The schedule of events is as follows. So the RFP was issued last Friday, March 24th by 10 a.m. We are here at this conference this morning, March 31st. The deadline, once again, to submit additional questions will be next Friday, April 7th by 5 p.m. Responses to those questions should be posted by April 11th, 5 p.m. And the proposal due date for this is April 21st by 5 p.m. Evaluation period tentatively right now is the time between April 21st and May 8th. And then we are hoping to get letters out by May 15th. Once again, I will be reading from these. That way, in the event someone in the future will be listening to these or doesn't have access for some reason to view the video, they can go ahead and have all the same information. So the purpose of this RFQ is to identify and connect well-qualified partners to acquisition opportunities that would support the Department of Housing Stability's strategic plan to house those experiencing homelessness, specifically targeting those experiencing unsheltered homelessness. The city is in process of identifying a short list of available properties of interest and intends to negotiate and execute letters of intent or purchase and sale agreements, which may be assigned to qualified nonprofit partners to complete financial closing on purchase costs, own and operate. After the city enters into an agreement with the respective sellers of the properties, qualified partners identified by this RFQ in the order of deemed qualifications may be offered the opportunity to be assigned the agreement or relayed negotiations for acquisition of a property. The expectation is that selected partners will complete financial closing with their own equity and bridge financing and will be reimbursed for most acquisition costs. Those selected partners will maintain and operate the properties in accordance with terms agreed upon by the city. The lead respondent and future property ownership entity must be a nonprofit organization per the CDOH NOFA requirements. Sorry about that. Qualified respondent teams may also include development consultants, if applicable, and supportive housing or bridge housing service providers, which may be for-profit or nonprofit organizations. So a partnership team comprising a nonprofit owner, operators, and service providers may apply for one or multiple types of properties. The different property types are the following four. So supportive housing for families, supportive housing for individuals and couples, supportive housing and rehousing services for families, or bridge housing and rehousing services for individuals and couples. Note that properties may include a mix of bridge housing and supportive housing. The intent of these properties is to serve unsheltered households, targeting to provide up to 600 units of bridge housing and supportive housing, combined with rehousing and supportive services. The expectations are that the focus of the solicitation is an encampment resolution. Therefore, the priority population the city intends to serve with these investments is unsheltered households. To support connectivity and tenant selection between unsheltered households and available units, specific housing-focused outreach teams will be working with people who are unsheltered at encampments to prepare them for bridge housing and supportive services. With this effort being collaborative in nature, the selected team for these projects will be expected to work directly with the assigned outreach team or teams for these projects. Lead respondent and future property ownership entity must be a nonprofit organization, once again, per our CDOH NOFA requirements. Qualified respondent teams may also include development consultants, if applicable, and bridge supportive housing service providers, which may be, I apologize for the redundancy, but once again, they may be for-profit or nonprofit organizations. Respondents must provide evidence of and respond to inquiry about expertise in the delivery of supportive housing and/or bridge housing and services to high acuity unsheltered homeless individuals and families. Respondent teams must also have experience owning and developing real estate and delivering services. The respondents are requested to take ownership of the properties before December 31st to ensure access to funding from HOST and CDOH. For the bridge loan takeout. For bridge loan takeout, the respondent is expected to apply for ARPA funds from the city using the standard HOST development project application and the CDOH NOFA. Please note that the maximum application amount per under the CDOH application amount per project under the NOFA for transformational affordable housing, homeownership, and workforce housing grant program. Is 10 million, and under NOFA 2 transformational homelessness, a response grant program is 5 million. It is expected that the respondent will receive a conditional approval of credit letter from the city affirming conditional commitment of city funds and a CDOH award letter to the respondent for the offered property within 3 months. To obtain this letter, the respondent will submit a full application for a HOST underwriting within 14 calendar days of the accepted date. The program requirements, the program standards and requirements are extensive. Please read the RFQ carefully to ensure respondents and respondent teams fully understand the required tasks and undertaking. Different property types have different requirements, including but not limited to tenant eligibility, benchmarks, data, and reporting requirements. Minimum financial requirements. Respondents must have a positive or stable, consistent 3-year trailing trend of income or reasonable one-time event or events interrupting this trend, and must have a reasonable amount of contingent liabilities with a low history of payout on construction guarantees. The city may consider balance sheet commitments from other respondent team members, depending on the partnership structure detailed in the submitted MOU. Other qualifications, required qualifications. The respondent team owner, operator, and service providers must have experience closing, financing, and managing at least one comparable project in the state of Colorado serving the desired target population, or have experience with 2 comparable projects elsewhere in the United States outside of Colorado. The respondent team is expected to commit to minimizing barriers to accessing bridge housing and supportive housing in their policies and procedures, and is barred from discriminating based on race, ethnicity, family composition, or marriage status, gender identity, sexual orientation, or religious affiliation. The respondent team must also have a willingness to serve unsheltered households. Data requirements. Contracted respondent agrees to report data and information on support housing and bridge housing and outcomes in the Homeless Management Information System, HMIS. Contracted respondent also, apologize for that, also agrees to fully comply with the rules and regulations as may be amended, required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, which governs the HMIS. Contracted respondent, in addition to the HUD requirements, must conform to the HMIS policies and procedures established and adopted and may be amended or updated by the MDHI continuum of care. The current policies and procedures are outlined in the CO HMIS policies and procedures and the CO HMIS security, privacy, and data quality plan. Reporting periods vary depending on the programs, so please once again read these requirements carefully. As always, with contracting with the city, we do require certificate of insurance provisions where loan proceeds are dispersed for construction, builder's risk insurance, or installation floater in the amount of the value of property as improved and renovated with the city and county of Denver named as lost payee. Commercial general liability insurance covering all operations by or on behalf of borrower, and on an occurrence basis with limits not less than 1 million per occurrence, 2 million products and completed operations aggregate, and 2 million policy aggregate. Borrowers, contractors shall include all subcontractors as insureds under the policy, or shall furnish separate certificates of insurance for each subcontractor. Workers' compensation and employers' liability insurance at statutory limits and otherwise sufficient to ensure the responsibilities of borrower and a contractor under the Colorado law. Property insurance in the amount of the value of the property subject to the deed of trust and covenant with the city named as lost payee. And in addition to responses to the questions that are listed in the RFQ, respondents must provide, as a part of technical requirements, the diversity and inclusiveness form, submit that, as well as suspension, debarment, a SAM certificate, if applicable, all audit information, as well as Secretary of State certificate of good standing. The evaluation criteria for this is respondent team capacity and experience, diversity and equity, response to the city's proposed questions, technical review of proposal requirements, past and current financials, and other requirements as listed in the RFP as applicable. No weighting of relative importance of criteria is intended or implied by this list. So please do not feel that just because one is listed higher than the other, that is of relative importance. Questions will be accepted once again. Oh, I apologize. This did not get updated, but until next week. So I will amend that, but it will be Friday, April 7th by 5 p.m. All questions and answers will be posted in an addendum, once again listed on the Zengen website as well as the city website. Submission of proposals for the solicitation may only be done electronically through Zengen, so please submit proposals at the website listed here. It is also listed directly in the RFQ document. All right, so the remaining time is for all of you to be able to ask your questions. Please put your questions in the chat function. The city will attempt to respond to them the best that we can. If for some reason we're not able to, we will follow up and it'll be posted in the addendum as well. If there are questions after this meeting, then please send them to hostprocurements@denvergov.org. And then just a reminder, any changes to the RFQ or its scope will be posted in an addendum. And please do not rely on any oral interpretations. Thank you. All right. I know it takes a minute to write the questions in there, so. First question. From Megan Davenport, how long does the city anticipate the partner holding the property? How long does the city anticipate the partner holding the property with the bridge loan?
I can take a stab at answering that, and Adam can jump in if you want to add anything, add on to anything. I think obviously we would want to minimize any interest costs that would come out of bridge loan. So but we recognize the need for a bridge loan just given the time the length of time we would need to underwrite both a city application and to apply to the city NOFA. So we recognize to the state's NOFA. So we would seek to minimize the length of the bridge loan the greatest extent possible, but just ignore, and we have we've had early discussions with the state about their NOFA process where they are trying to streamline it as well. So I think we'd want to do all we can to minimize the length of that bridge loan, but just need to all of those other pieces would need to fall into place to take it out. So I don't know if I can give you a specific length of time answer, but we would certainly work to minimize.
Follow up on that. What, if any, long-term debts would the partner continue to carry after the bridge loan payoff?
Well, I mean, I think it would have to depend on your financing structure and how you were. Obviously, we would be looking for partners to bring to the table whatever any equity that they might be able to put into the loan, and obviously the services as well. We, as you probably aware, within HOST, we typically operate as a gap financer, but in this situation where we have some funds set aside for these types of acquisitions, and we know that the state resources are available, we would just look for whatever financing you would propose to put together, and to make sure that it had the long-term stability that we'd be looking for it to be successful through the DOLA round, and just to be able to have the HOST debt on top of it.
Does that answer both questions then, Megan? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. All right. From Ted Pasco, and I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name here, but how many properties are in question? Where are they approximately, and how big are the lots? If you can, Jillian, if you are able to share any kind of information.
I don't know if we're able to relay the specific information at this time. So I think as soon as we get the RFQs in, we'll have more information on the properties available.
Thank you. Is there a formal definition of what the city means by bridge housing? I saw detail on the supportive housing component, but less on bridge. Lana or Midori?
Yeah, so we typically use bridge housing. It is labeled in HMIS as emergency shelter. It's not considered transitional housing because of the repercussions that a household experiences when transitional housing is labeled as such for coordinated entry requirements. But we use bridge housing typically for a household to have an identified housing resource to bridge them to that next thing. So they have a stable place to be during that time that they're getting all their pieces and bits sorted.
Is it a requirement that all guests have that housing resource? And once again, this is for bridge housing specifically, right? Correct. All right.
So I think there's lots of different ways to think about this under this particular RFP. And so we would assess based on the proposal that's being made by the partner or contractor to determine, yes, I think ideally we want to make sure that someone has an identified resource. Otherwise, we're just looking at creating emergency shelter and wanting to be able to differentiate between that. I think it also just depends on the design of whatever is happening, right? So folks could structure a building in a way that it naturally rolls into some sort of permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing. So I think there's a lot of different ways that someone could propose how it would work where it would still be bridge housing specifically. Lana, do you have more to add to that? I feel like I was really vague.
No, not at this point.
I know you're asking for all of it to come through the chat. I'm sorry, just as a clarification. I think the main question on my mind is, in order to access the bridge housing resource, must in referrals or intake require that all residents have come in with the housing resource in hand, or is part of the proposal, the service package to be having folks enter and get connected with a housing resource while staying at the bridge housing? Is that an eligible use or way to think about this potential bridge housing unit?
Yeah, it's a both and, I would say.
Great, thank you.
I would also say that it's a value of the city that any emergency shelter that exists is housing focused. And so we would want to differentiate between what exists as emergency shelter and bridge housing, above and beyond that we want folks that are engaged in shelter to also be working towards a plan of housing.
This is from Stephanie Kaufman, is there an engagement requirement for bridge? Specifically member client engagement clarification. To clarify.
In order to be placed into bridge, is that what you're asking?
Yes, I'm asking if there's like a case management engagement requirement.
Yeah, so prior to entry into those units, they would have to be engaged with an outreach team that is designated to that specific encampment that would be moving into the bridge housing location. And so if they are not engaged or choose not to take that resource as an option, then they wouldn't qualify for that bridge housing opportunity.
Sorry, Elena, just to clarify, I mean, engagement while they're in that housing resource.
Yeah, sorry. So the goal is to have the outreach team follow them through their process into permanent housing. And so they would continue that engagement throughout exterior to the bridge housing while in the bridge housing, and then over to the permanent solution.
All right, we have a couple of minutes left. I want to make sure we do get through everybody's questions, but as a reminder, if we are not able to answer them here, please send them in directly to that host procurement's email, and we will be posting all questions and answers on the site. I have, would a 24/7 shelter on the first floor with PSH units on the upper floors be appropriate for this RFP?
I would say yes, but we would look at the full proposal, not just like one aspect of it. So it's a maybe, solid maybe, depending on the proposal.
Agreed.
So essentially, it's eligible, but there are other, the host would be looking at the other criteria and requirements as well. There are less families staying in encampments. Will referrals to bridge for families still require outreach engagement?
Sorry, I'm doing this all on my phone, and so it's making it a little more difficult for me to toggle back and forth. So as far as outreach and families, not necessarily. When we're talking singles and couples, for that specific bridge housing, that's where the outreach team would come into play. I would have Midori answer on behalf of families.
I would say that based on what we currently see, there's still a fair amount of engagement, outreach engagement with families experiencing homelessness, maybe not so much in large encampments. But I think we would just look at the full package of what is being proposed. And I would also say that we understand that the needs of families look different than the needs of individuals, especially those folks that are coming right off the street. So I don't anticipate that we try to put them all in one place unless that was preferred by a family for some reason, like the unsheltered individuals with the unsheltered families.
What is the city's expectation for long-term use of the properties? What broadly will the 99-year covenant require? Jillian? Do you want to take a stab at that?
Sorry, it took me a second to find my unmute. So essentially we're going to keep the 99-year covenant on the property just so we can control the tentative use of the property moving forward. So that's the purpose of the covenant.
Did that answer your question?
Not exactly. I'm curious about the concept of evolving the use over time. So it sounds like the 99-year covenant will be for the tenant to require sort of a nonprofit owner of the property, but in terms of the space use, imagining that it would likely evolve over time as the needs of our unhoused folks shift as a community.
I mean, we haven't developed the actual covenants in place. So depending on what you're proposing for the future, we do want to keep, based on funding, the use specific to what we're looking for. So, changing over time, you know, we'll have to consider all those factors as we go into the 99-year lease and structure that covenant.
All right, any last questions? And once again, it doesn't have to be last questions entirely, just last questions for the meeting. If you guys do have questions later on, please let us know. All right. Well, we are over time, so thank you so much, and thanks for your interest and participating this morning. Like I said, if you have any questions, please send them to Host Procurements, and let us know how we can assist in that. Thank you.